everyone, and thank you all so much for joining our webinar today. Let's talk contextual targeting. We're super excited to have all of you here, and even if you don't have any prior knowledge on anything ad tech related, or you do, we hope that you leave today's webinar learning something new and getting super engaged and informed about the topic. So let's get started. So today our panelists are our three co-founders. They will introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. So I'll just briefly let everybody know about AdSkate as well. So AdSkate was started in 2019 in Pittsburgh. And then essentially AdSkate is transforming the digital ad space using AI to eliminate irrelevant ads, drive revenue growth for businesses in a privacy-first world. AdSkate's platform sort of converts any type of content. It can be text, video, or audio into data points that can be used by businesses to reach more relevant and engaged audiences online and thereby get a better ROI on their ad spend. Just a little bit of background about AdSkate. AdSkate has launched since its inception solutions in three areas, one in contextual targeting, one in media planning, and then our most recent solution sort of touches or goes into the creative analysis of space. We recently closed a pre-seed round with investors including Innovation Works, 3 Point Rising Ventures, Quaker Capital, along with Carnegie Mellon University as well. Me personally, my name is Salil. I'm one of the three co-founders of AdSkate. Within AdSkate, my sort of role includes managing the sales and business development. So I oversee sort of the customer acquisition process. I'm also responsible for fundraising and investor relations, and then overall general management as well. So with that, I'll let the other members of the panel introduce themselves. Akaash?
Hey, Salil, thanks. It's good to see some familiar names online. So my name's Akaash, like Salil had introduced me. At AdSkate, I lead all things to do with marketing and the product side of things, and I do try to help Salil with the sales side of things too. I'm gonna hand it over to Shreyas now.
Hi everyone, great to have all of you join us for this webinar. My name is Shreyas, and I'm another one of the co-founders of AdSkate. I take on more of the technical role at AdSkate. I work with members of our teams to build out and flesh out our AI models that power our web platform. I also work with some of our clients to develop some of the customized solutions that can help in their business process. Looking forward to sharing thoughts on this webinar with everyone.
Awesome, thanks so much. So now we're just going to get right into it. As the webinar title suggests, we will be talking about contextual targeting. What is contextual targeting? Just give us a bit of an overview.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone on this webinar has been served an ad in some way, shape, or form. So online advertising is basic in its nutshell, involves targeting customers with the right set of ads. And contextual targeting basically studies the content that a customer is consuming, be it in terms of text, video, or audio, and then provides the right type of ad to them. In a former life, we used to see cookie-based targeting. Cookie-based targeting involves gathering information from your device and whatever type of device you may be using, and it would capture your personal identifiable information, and then they would try to showcase to you ads that the advertiser may perceive as relevant. But over a course of time, this form of advertising has been considered to be intrusive and has also been considered to be invasive. So contextual targeting has come back into the play, and contextual targeting has come back into the play in a big way, because of which there's no form of studying of any personal information. It only studies the content that you're viewing and then puts out an ad that's relevant at that specific moment in time based on the content that you're viewing.
Awesome. So can you just tell me sort of how things changed in the realm of contextual targeting in terms of user privacy and cookie regulation?
Yeah, for sure. So 2016 was an interesting year. In 2016, GDPR came into place. For the people who might not know of GDPR, GDPR is the full acronym is General Data Protection Regulation. And it was launched by the EU to protect its citizens. And at that point in time, it wasn't pushed in a big manner. But then 2018 came in, and then in 2018, you guys might remember there was like the whole Cambridge Analytica debacle, and larger tech companies started getting dinged for privacy violations. And in my previous answer to like Chelsea's question, I'd mentioned about personal identifiable information. Personal identifiable information, in a nutshell, is information that's personal to you. So your first name, last name, your email ID. These data points have been used by larger data players for their benefits to showcase ads to you. And this also involves like using your IP address too. So different government bodies around the world started getting concerned for their citizens, and then they started coming up with regulation acts. And hence, at this point in time, we started seeing a sea of change. Today, now we see within the United States, we see that there are different laws that have been passed, even at a state level. At a state level, we have CCPA, which is from California. We also have CPRA, which is from California again. And then we also have like the Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act. So state by state, we are seeing different legislations come in, which is basically reducing the dependency on cookies of late.
Awesome. So in your opinion, Akash, why do you believe that contextual targeting is needed?
So I'm just going to reflect back on my previous answer again. So 2018 was a defining point, and that at that point in time, a lot of the advertising players, be it the advertisers and brands themselves too, felt the need to like implement a solution that is over encompassing and takes into consideration the consumer's pain points. So hence contextual targeting came into place. Contextual targeting, in a nutshell, has been around since the birth of the internet. Things changed because people wanted to be targeted, or customers were targeted in a more invasive manner because more data sets were available. Now we see like Google has come up with their method of contextual targeting. They call it Flock. And then they also came up with a different method called Topics too. So larger data providers are doing their best in terms of using contextual targeting. Contextual targeting is not only used in the realm of not only in the realm of video, audio, and text. It's also now being used in CTV and OTT too. Additionally, it's also being used for creative analysis too. So, in a nutshell, and before I pass it on, I would like to say that like contextual targeting is here to stay, and it's going to have a more of a profound impact as time moves on.
Awesome. So now let's head into our next topic of conversation, which is creative analysis. Need of understanding of a creative is extremely important. And with AI and machine learning techniques, a creative ad can be understood from a quantitative perspective rather than a qualitative perspective. So now we'll let Shreyas expand on this. So Shreyas, let me ask you, what does one mean by analyzing creatives? And in your opinion, how does this help in the current environment of increasing privacy regulations and the move towards cookieless targeting?
Hey, Chelsea. Yeah. So in a nutshell, what analyzing creatives refers to is, it's just that. So can you take the ad that a customer eventually sees and pick out the creative elements that were used in the ad, right? So it could be image ads, it could be video ads. What kind of color was used in it, what kind of theme was used in it, right? So is there a person standing there? Is this person smiling? Is the person holding the product or standing next to the product, right? So like, for example, if you're running an ad for a pizza chain, right? Are you running it, sorry, with a theme of like a beach, right? So friends hanging out on the beach, having pizza, drinking beer, having a good time? Or is it more, you tune it towards another scenario where college students are hanging out in the dorm room, having a game night, having pizza, etc., right? So creative analysis really helps you study creatives and pick out the correct themes and other creative elements, like I mentioned earlier, colors, etc., that can increase the probability that someone is actually going to engage with your ad, click on your ad, and then ultimately convert, right? Get the conversion that you're looking for. And the cool thing is modern machine learning techniques, they're super capable of just analyzing petabytes of data, petabytes of creatives, and picking out the trends that actually resonate with your audience and sort of telling you what would work and what would not work.
Awesome. Great answer. So let's continue. How do you think that AI and machine learning would help with creative analysis and improving CTR? So we know typically that graphic designers and video agencies have years of experience, and they're usually the folks who handle sort of the creatives. Do you think, in your opinion, that AI will replace them in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's I would say the state of AI today, it is definitely not going to replace the human element in terms of creating content. AI is very good at studying content, but I wouldn't say it's great at the moment at creating novel content that can sort of with a high probability touch the hearts and minds of people, right? For example, humor or sarcasm, does an AI know what that is? Not really, right? Can an AI be, for example, politically correct or stay away from biases that humans have? Again, not necessarily. And that's primarily because the way AI functions right now is it analyzes the troves of data that is there on the internet, and it imbibes whatever humans have created, and whatever it creates is mimicking what humans have already created. And it has an uncanny ability nowadays to actually create something, and you're not able to really say whether a human created it or an AI created it. But still, like I said, there are these human biases in there. So I would say it's AI is not necessarily what you want to depend on to create something novel that could resonate with your audience. You still need to have a human in the loop for that, right? So it may not be, let's say you're trying to put out a brand message, you're trying to improve your branding, and you're trying to put out a brand message that talks about a recent social issue or a social cause, right? You still need a human to kind of bring out that messaging. But what I can say is that what AI is extremely good at is, again, just analyzing what creatives have already been deployed out there, right, for various campaigns. And so it's able to pick out the elements or the themes that people have used in creatives that resonates well with an audience. So you could think of AI taking the role of sort of advising a creative designer or a graphic designer, giving them sort of inspiration points of what has worked well. And so the creative designer can pick up those points and then sort of include that in the creative that they're building out. So yeah, so in a nutshell, I would say that AI would be really good at helping you optimize your creative for sales and conversions, but it's definitely not there in the realm of being able to create something from scratch that can improve your branding out of the door, if that makes sense.
Awesome. So speaking upon that, what do you think the future of creative analysis looks like?
So I would say, I think that it kind of builds upon that previous comment I made. It's what I'm excited about and what I feel will happen in a few years' time is this whole world of generative AI taking over. So there has been a lot of work in what folks claim as generative AI models, and you can see AI just generating text content, right? And the ability to write entire blogs that look as a human has written it, or the ability to even write software, right? There's AI that's been trained to generate software to help software developers write out some boilerplate code. So this is also now trickling into images and videos. I'm sure all of us have read like articles about OpenAI coming up with their recent model called DALL-E, which generates very photorealistic images. There's even one from Google, I think it's called Imagen, again, right, it just creates photo, like pictures based on an input from a human. The human says, hey, show me a picture of a corgi dancing on a rock or something, and it just comes up with the image, and it looks super cool, right? But again, right, I wouldn't say that it is at a point where you can control what the AI ultimately puts out there. There has to be some amount of tuning involved by a human to actually get the right message across to your audience. So I think what we can expect to see in the future, maybe even just within the next 5 to 6 years, is a state where a creative designer or an account manager, a campaign manager can just say that, okay, this is the kind of audience I'm trying to target for my pizza ad or my automobile ad, right? I want to make sure that there are scenes of a beach being used, there's a sunset in the background. I want to stay away from this kind of gender bias or political messages. So AI, go generate my content, and then they would create something for you, which you can, which you can ultimately use during your campaign. And I also feel like with increasing amounts of money that's being poured into OTT advertising, right? There could soon be a day where, let's say, you're watching Seinfeld on Hulu or Netflix, and there's an ad spot that comes up, and the ad spot, let's say, just followed a scene where everyone's sitting in the cafe, all of them are chatting, right? And the AI could just immediately know that, okay, my ad spot just followed a cafe scene. Let me generate, for example, a deep fake of Jerry Seinfeld talking to the audience about, in a cafe environment, about his favorite brand of coffee he would like to drink in the morning. So I can totally see that happening in the next, next few years. And yeah, that's part of what I'm looking forward to, and seeing, what changes we can see in that run.
That's great. You talked a little bit about OTT platforms. So Salil, can I ask you sort of what OTT is, where is it going, and where do ads fit in the OTT space?
Sure, no, absolutely, Chelsea. So I'll start with the definition. OTT, or over the top, as those three letters mean. Essentially what it is like, OTT stands for, when video content, specifically your sort of TV shows and movies, are delivered to you over the internet, as opposed to being delivered through your classic cable TV box. So for example, if you're watching Game of Thrones on HBO channel that comes in through your cable box, that's your sort of linear TV or classic TV, if you will. But if you're watching Game of Thrones on HBO Max on your iPad, then it's OTT. And then sort of your Netflix, Twitch, Hulu, Disney, they all sort of fall into the space as well. So now, as far as trends in OTT space goes, over the last few years, and especially during pandemic, we've seen a rise in adoption of OTT platforms, streaming platforms to be specific. So while the number of people that were cutting the cable cord was already increasing before pandemic, we've seen that number increase on a massive scale since the pandemic began. And then there were sort of a few other factors that helped this adoption. I mean, one was release of 5G networks across the world. You now have access to high-speed internet everywhere, inside and outside your home, along with an increase in bandwidth as well. So and streaming high-quality content from anywhere in the world is no longer a luxury. It has become an absolute necessity. Second is the whole streaming space has evolved. And when I say it has evolved, I mean there has been a lot of competition. There is a lot of competition, and also there has been a lot of localization or customization of content. And what does that mean? 10 years ago, Netflix dominated the space, especially in the area of paid ad-free streaming. Today, you have so many options, both paid and free. I mean, you have platforms that are delivering high quality content to niche audiences, whether it is language specific or community specific or interest specific. Now, coming to your second part of the question, which was about ads and OTT, and talking about ads and OTT platforms, it is clear that the pressure of sustained revenue growth and profitability is pushing streaming platforms towards monetizing their content using ads. I mean, Disney announced that they will launch an ad-supported tier, I believe, in December of 2022. There are also rumors about Netflix following this trend in spring of 2023. So it's just a matter of time. I mean, there's no question about that ads will come to OTT platforms. What will be interesting to see is how these platforms adopt ads. Will it be like linear TV or classic TV, where you're watching Game of Thrones and then you get a Coca-Cola ad, or will they follow sort of like a YouTube style pre-roll banner or a banner on top of the show when it's been televised? Also, will they open up these ad delivery to existing ad networks and ad exchanges, or will they be walled garnered? By that I mean will you be able to buy ad on Netflix through Xandr or through Trade Desk, or will you have to go through Netflix or have to go through Disney to get your ad on Disney or Netflix? So that'll be another interesting sort of piece of the puzzle. I mean, Netflix announced this partnership with Microsoft, so I'm guessing we're getting some glimpses there, but still the picture is not completely clear. I personally feel that there's a huge opportunity here for these platforms to change the advertising landscape. I mean, if you think about it, you have a very engaged audience with these platforms. People are actually coming here and picking a show, picking a class of genre to watch, as opposed to like, in classic TV, you would just sort of like flick through channels. So if these platforms stick to the classic old TV style advertising, I mean, will people get up to go get a glass of water or turn their attention to their smartphones when the ad is playing? So, I mean, keeping that in mind, how you deliver these ads without compromising the user experience while still engaging them towards the brand, towards the advertiser, will define which platform will come out as the winner. I mean, and let's not forget, I mean, one of the players out there sort of nicely hidden there is Apple. I mean, it's a $250 billion gorilla with money, technology, and talent to deliver a world-class experience. So while there is a huge opportunity, there might be some challenges that advertisers may face with OTT.
What do you think are some of the key challenges that advertisers might see with OTT advertising?
Good question. I mean, in the end, the basics of advertising don't change. Advertisers want to reach the right audiences. They want to boost the performance of their marketing campaign. And then right now, especially with internet, all sorts of content being sort of put out there, and they want to make sure that they stay away from sort of any kind of risky or controversial content that might work against their brand. So how much control and visibility will the streaming platforms provide to advertisers when it comes to aspects like audience data or device data or ad formats or dynamic creative optimization or engagement metrics? I think these are some of the parameters that are still unknown, and depending upon how much access is given or not given, there might be some challenges with advertising and OTT platforms. Second important factor to consider is privacy regulations. That will essentially, these regulations will limit what information about audiences platforms can provide to the advertisers. And then lastly, another factor is cost. What CPMs these platforms offer, which advertisers can take, which will define which advertisers can take advantage of this super engaged audience. Is it going to be as expensive as TV? Then you will see sort of smaller advertisers losing out on this. Versus if it is open bidding, then smaller advertisers may still have an opportunity to tap into this super engaged audiences. So just to summarize your question, the challenges will be defined by sort of three main factors, if you will. One is transparency and visibility into audiences. Second is how much control and measurement is offered by these platforms to the advertisers, and then third, lastly, I mean, costs.
So talking about some of these challenges, how do you think advertisers should think and plan for OTT advertising?
Again, an excellent question. Well, because there's still so much unknown there. I mean, these are new platforms that are going to come to the market. I would recommend 3 steps that probably advertisers can consider. I mean, first is research your audience and the content that is offered by each platform or the platform that you're planning to do a test on or go with. So and the reason for that is simple, like different platforms will have different audiences. Research shows, and I guess everybody on the call can agree, OTT is still heavily skewed towards sort of your younger audiences. My mom is still not on Netflix. I mean, she prefers her TV shows versus me and my family, we stream Coco Melon or any other program for our kids. So you get the picture. And I believe this is where contextual intelligence, contextual targeting will play a massive role in helping advertisers understand or tie that relationship between a specific piece of content and an audience so that advertisers can go and find the right audiences on these platforms. Second is how much control and measurement is an advertiser getting from a platform. I think this is also an important factor that the advertisers should consider. Basically, how much control do you have on your campaign? How many parameters can you control? Can you control audiences, the timing, device, format, creative? How many variables you can control will define how well you can run a proper experiment for your marketing campaign using this platform to make sure that these campaigns are actually working for you. And then also something I would ask is, like, do you have a way to assess performance of your campaigns? Can you clearly relate your ad dollars on OTT platforms to your brand lift, to your sales, to your downloads, or whatever marketing metrics you're tracking? So that is something that I would also consider. And then lastly, I mean, cost. This is an important factor. I mean, in the end, if OTT blows up your cost of customer acquisition, then it may not be a right channel for you. So being mindful of which platform still allows you to acquire your clients without blowing up your budget is definitely an important factor to consider. I think that will keep both your chief marketing officer as well as your CFO happy at the end of the day.
We did receive some questions, so thank you for that. So we'll just go through them right now and just sort of answer them, and any one of the panelists can answer. First one we have over here is, what is the biggest trend that you are seeing in this industry?
Right, I can take this since I spoke about contextual at the start. So as Salil had reflected on it, contextual targeting is getting applied to connected TV and OTT. And since there's an increased push in that realm, we're also seeing that the larger players like Google and within the whole schema of advertising or marketing itself, even Trade Desk has come into this place by trying to push in their unified ID. All of these different data structures or data points that they are providing, in a nutshell or in a skeletal form, has a lot of connotation and annotation towards contextual targeting. Additionally, there has been a lot of industry research done over the course of last year. In fact, a lot of industry experts have stated that brand risk has decreased by close to 7%. And along with that, like brand memorization, which basically is like people's recollections of a brand, has increased by 40%. And this is truly from a contextual perspective, mainly because of the fact that when a customer consumes a certain type of content, they're getting a relevant ad adjacent to it. So that's where like I see the future of advertising playing through, and the trends also happening additionally along with it.
Awesome. Okay, we have another question. This question says, there are so many contextual targeting solutions out there. What's next in contextual targeting?
I can take that question.
Sure.
And Akaash and Shreyas, feel free to jump in. Yes, there are so many contextual targeting out there, right? The second part of the question, what's next in contextual targeting? If you really look at the contextual targeting landscape today, almost all the major contextual targeting providers they offer targeting capabilities for text-based content. So I mean, if you want to target people who are reading blogs, newspapers, other websites, I mean, yes. And then this is what these current sort of contextual targeting players offer you solution. But what about contextual targeting on podcasts, right? Like what if you want to reach your Spotify podcast listeners, or even people who are listening to music? What about people who are watching videos on YouTube regarding a particular topic? Most today, if you really look at your user or audiences or your consumers' buying journey, I would typically ask the question, how do people go about researching a product, researching a service, finding solution of the problem? There's a massive shift that is happening from, hey, okay, if I have to, for example, as simple as, how do I jumpstart my car? Previously, people would like Google it, you'll have an article, people would read it, versus, and then, that would be a perfect place to have sort of your AAA ad or your sort of roadside assistant ad being served. But that is moving away from people reading those articles and taking like 15 minutes to finish up versus watching a 2-minute YouTube video of how to jumpstart a car. Also a great place to advertise roadside assistance or sort of your AAA, if you will. So now that shifts the play from doing contextual targeting on your text-based content or your articles to your video, your audio content. And that is sort of like, that's where content is moving, that's where audiences are moving, that's where consumers are starting their buying journey. And hence, that I truly believe that, being able to do contextual targeting as effectively as it's being done on text, and being able to do that on video and audio is probably the next sort of aspect of where contextual targeting is going. So that's one. Second is, I would say, the nuances, right? Like today, contextual targeting, currently the way it has been done is you put your audience in sort of like a one-size-fits-all bucket, and then you target them with ads. But what if you have an audience that doesn't fit that bucket? Like today, most contextual targeting providers use these standard 25 buckets that have some categories and subcategories. But what if you have an audience that doesn't fit that bucket? How would you target them? Even in the same industry, every business has a slightly nuanced audience, slightly different customer, slightly different consumer persona that they're trying to reach. And then if you cannot fit your audience within those 25 buckets, you're not able to reach them through contextual targeting providers. So then that is exactly will be the next phase, or the next sort of innovation in contextual targeting, where being able to define an audience in as much detail as possible, so that you can target them with the right ads in the right places at the right time, is where sort of is the next development, if you will, in contextual targeting.
That was a great answer. Thanks, Salil. We have another one in the chat. With Google postponing its depreciation of third-party cookies, do you guys think contextual targeting has a future?
I can take that as well. Yes, I mean, we just found out that Google's pushing as depreciation of third-party cookies to later in 2023 or even early 2024. But that's just if you look at the third-party audiences, right? Like Google's ecosystem, whether it's Chrome or Android, that's one part or one sort of section within the internet. You also have audiences that are using browsers that are not Chrome, like Firefox or Safari. Even if Google sort of has delayed its depreciation of cookies, iOS still has its privacy regulation in place that is still making it harder for ad tech platforms to do a cross app tracking or tracking people on their smartphones. Second thing is, it's also next thing is like these third-party cookies have mostly to do with, as I said, browsers and mostly Chrome. But what about audiences on other platforms, like, or if you're watching a YouTube video on iPad, or even reading a news article on Safari on iPad, or using one of the apps for reading an article. Cookies, it doesn't matter, whether cookies are or not there when you have to target people on those devices or on CTV. So that is where I believe whether Google keeps its cookies, third-party cookies, or depreciates it, you still have many other aspects of this ecosystems which are not affected by third-party cookies, where contextual targeting will still be the main driver or the main sort of targeting weapon that the advertisers will have. Also, I mean, GDPR is sort of much more mature now, but privacy regulations in North America have just started to come in, and with time they will start to get stricter and stricter. So even if third parties cookies exist, to what extent you can still track behaviors online, that will still be limited, even if the cookie exists. So there will be restrictions that will continue to increase and make it harder and harder for people to sort of do behavioral tracking online. So I still believe that irrespective of what happens to third-party cookies, we are still seeing a massive shift from audience-based targeting to contextual targeting. And I think adoption of contextual targeting, especially as contextual targeting technologies mature, contextual targeting moves from text to audio and video, we will see contextual targeting being like the main targeting sort of strategy for most advertisers.
Hey, Chelsea, I think I'll just add one more point to what Salil was saying. Actually, a good question. So with Google deprecating third-party cookies, essentially, like Salil mentioned, what's going to happen is the ability for advertisers to know the who of who's watching the ad, right? It's probably is going to go down, right? But there are two other aspects in running a campaign. So like there is of course the who, but then there is the where your ad is running, right? And then there is the what is your audience seeing, right? So there are the three W's there. So when your who gets weaker, you're going to start adopting technologies that strengthen your where and the what, right? So contextual targeting can actually help you, just like Salil mentioned, can help you address that section of, let's say, the Venn diagram. So the where is like we mentioned, right? So what is the context of where the ad is going to be served, and the what is the ad that's being served, right? Can you optimize the ad to match the app where the ad is going to end up, or can you optimize the ad to the website or the channel where the ad is going to end up? Can you optimize the messaging, right? So I would say contextual targeting is like a broad umbrella which kind of addresses these other two portions, other two W's, if you will, of your campaign, while the first W, the who, which was the predominant one for the past decade, is getting weaker.
I think she put it very well. I like that.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question here that I think Shreyas could answer. So with the adoption of artificial intelligence and machine learning in advertising, and now including in aspects like creative development, what skill sets do you think future workforces will need to have to be successful in digital advertising?
Yeah, so I think I briefly touched upon that in one of the earlier questions you asked. So I feel there are going to be new systems and tools out there for, let's take the example of, like, for example, creative designers, right? To actually use. Maybe it's going to be a plugin in Adobe Illustrator or some other software, right? Where there is going to be an AI model to which you can actually mention the constraints of your campaign, or mention the constraints of your audience, or mention what kind of brand messaging your brand wants to get out there, right? So it's sort of, in the initial days, it's sort of going to be what is the right kind of input I can give these tools for the AI to actually generate the right kind of creative that's going to resonate with my audience. So probably that's going to be a skill set that's going to be necessary moving forward, without just because of all the activity that is happening in this domain with respect to, like I said earlier, right, generative AI. People, I guess the account managers or the creative designers, they should be really on top of what, like I said, right, what social messages or what biases they want to avoid. And those are the kind of things they're going to need to input to these tools, so that these tools can actually create the creative, create the image, create the video that you want to put there in front of your audience. And it's probably the first steps to that kind of technology is going to be, like I said earlier, it's going to be a piece of software that's going to generate everything that the software thinks is going to be great for a campaign, and then it's going to hand it off to a human to actually tweak it, tweak the messaging, tweak the coloring, right? And before you actually send it further down the pipeline and deploy it for a campaign. So it's going to be some sort of skill set that folks need to know in order to interact with these AI tools. That's going to come up very soon in the next year or so. I hope that it answered the question.
It did. Thanks so much. First one we have